All right, hi, Algebra 1 students from all across the land that is Huron. This is Mr. Cunningham, as my students know, but the other visiting students, I guess, are just meeting me. You're welcome. What? I don't know. Okay, so I am going to go through the entire review for the Unit 1 test. My recommendation, no matter what class you're in, I'm sure all my colleagues agree, is that you are trying these problems on your own and then checking your work, not just writing down what I put on the screen. Okay, and then the problems that you are not sure on, the ones that you were like, well, how did he get that one? Need you to try those again. Grab another piece of paper, get a blank review from your teacher. Do it again and again and again until you can do that all on your own, because that is what you are going to need to do during your test on Monday. Monday. Okay, so without further delay, let me make my screen look how I need it to. Get my pen working. Let's go with blue for the day. We might switch it up if I get bored of looking at that same pen color the whole time. So I trust you guys can read. So the statistical question would be definition G. We got D, L, K, A. Let's go through these. Statistical question, that's a question that requires a survey study to find an answer. Non-statistical, that's those questions that only have one answer. There's no variability there. Categorical question, keyword category, right? A question that has categories. Okay, a numerical question, K, question type that has numbers. Again, keyword number, numerical. A box plot. It's a data display that shows the 5-number summary, right? So you have the 5-number summary and then you use it to make a box plot with Q1, sorry, your minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and maximum. Okay, let's go through a couple more of these. So E, I, oop, I, J, F, B, J, F, B. Okay, start with a histogram. Histogram are those bar graph looking things that we've been doing. A histogram is slightly different than a bar graph, but it sure does look like one, right? And the one that I just drew, the histogram I just drew, is bell-shaped, as letter I indicates there. Okay, bimodal keyword or key part of that word, a prefix there would be bi, even though we spelled should be modal, I believe. Bicycle has 2 wheels. Bimodal has 2 bells or 2 hills, as it says in the definition there for letter J. Uniform, just think if you were in a school where people wore a uniform, then all the people would have the same outfit on, just like data that is flat across all data points. So it looks like this on a dot plot when there's the exact same amount of dots everywhere. Uniform data is symmetrical, but it is not bell-shaped. 5-number summary, like we said, it's kind of it's when you put your min Q1, median Q3, and your max into a box and then use it to make your box plot. And then the IQR H, we get our IQR by doing Q3 minus Q1. Okay. And an outlier, we'll use the formula later for an outlier, but letter C, extremely high, extremely low. Extremely is a generic term. We will figure out the exact mathematical way to calculate an outlier later. Okay, so putting these numbers in order. Honestly, I think it's easier to do the dot plot before putting them in order. Because if I'm looking at these and I see a 10, right? 8, 9, 10, and I do a dot. Like these eventually, once I put all these dots on here, my numbers will be in order. So personally, I lose track of the numbers if I'm just crossing them out as I go. So I go dot plot first, which gave me a single 8, 2 9s, 3 10s. I had 3 11s. Great band, 3 11. And full disclosure, I accidentally put 4 11s earlier. That's the 411. That's the information. Now you have all the information on me screwing up when I did this for the first time. Okay, and if you do have a number off, it will throw off your data. So you want to be careful. You don't get to use friends on on the test, but reviewing with friends can be very helpful because friends don't let friends do stats alone. You had 2 13s, 2 14s, 15, and a 16. Okay, some gimmies on the 5 number summary are the minimum 8, maximum 16. We'll come back to those other 3 in a minute. But this data is now in order. Look, I have 1 8. I have 2 9s, 9, 9. I have 3 10s, 10, 10, 10. 3 11s. And I'm down with the 3 11s. See, that's a 311 joke that you might not understand if amber isn't the color of your energy. That would be another one that you wouldn't get. Most people wouldn't get. But if you're storming to the party like your name is El Nino, or no, that's Sum 41. Geez, a lot of mathematical band names in the early 2000s. All right, we had 2 13s. That's not a band. We have 2 14s, 15, 16. Okay, and I can hear the eyes rolling now. Like I said, I'm going to switch colors every now and then. I'm going to switch to red here. I counted all these numbers up, and I believe I got, let me double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, I got 18 numbers, which means 18 divided by 2 is 9. The ninth number in this data set is going to be where I need to have 9 numbers on each side of the median. So if I count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, let me double check. And then I should have, so my median is going to be between 11 and 12. If I did that right, then I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on both sides. Yahtzee, I did it right. Okay, so my median is between 11 and 12. If you added those up and got the average, you would get 11.5. Or if you just thought to yourself, what's in between those two numbers? 11.5. Quartile 3. Just ignore the right side of the data. Just only look at the left. Quartile 1. Your first quartile is the median for the first half of data. I have 9 numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Half of 9 is 4.5. So I go 4 on one side. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 on the other. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I should have 4 on both sides of this median of the first half of data. So quartile 1 should be a 10. Quartile 3, do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got my numbers there. There's my Q1. Here's my Q3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now we use these numbers to create your box plot. So you have 8. Again, if I'm going too fast, maybe I'm going too slow, fast forward me, go to the ones that you found tough and do them again. So I need to mark at 8, 9, 10, 11, just make sure it's between 11 and 12 for 11 and a half. 13 should be right on there. And 16. So just literally draw a line at every place. The middle, your IQR, is that box. The whiskers are on the outside. What measure of center is most appropriate for this data? This is symmetrical data. Therefore, a mean, aka the average. Mean is the best measure of center. This round. All right, what measure of variability is most appropriate? Okay, so mean and standard deviation, they go together. So standard deviation, same as above with symmetrical data. It's the best measure of variability. Okay. All right, which golfers score are approximately symmetric? Okay, it might not be exact, but it looks pretty close to symmetrical. Okay, I would say D. So you guys can't see this, but my tool for the pen is covering up D and C. But D, look, we're pretty well balanced between the two. So I would say it's D and C, same thing. Each whisker on the right side, they might not be exact, but they're pretty darn close. Okay, so they're approximately symmetrical, D and C. Which ones are skewed? Look how A has, let's see, the gap between 42 and 55. That's a 13-point spread between minimum and quartile one. Okay, where there's only a 6-point spread on the right side. So we are skewed to the left. We have a left skew. Okay, and here again, it's not as extreme, right? But we have from 48, right? 48 to 55, that's 7. Whereas the quartile 3 and maximum for player B is only 3, right? So that's a big difference, right? It's double. So which ones are skewed to the left? A, B. For whatever reason, using red for extended periods makes my eyes tired. Okay, so let's move on to doing some calculations based on what we have here. All right, we're going to find the IQR for all the golfers. So if you look at player A, the IQR every time is Q3 minus Q1. So the numbers that I am using, for IQR, I'm taking my Q3 minus my Q1. Okay, so if I look at player A's Q3 is 61. Player A's the Q3 is 61, the Q1 is 55, right? Q3, Q1 for player A, so I'm doing 61 minus 55, and the IQR is 6. Player B, I have 64 minus, again, 55. So 64 minus 55. So player B has an IQR of 11. Player C, we've got 58 minus 55. 58 minus 55, which is 3. Player D, which is 55 minus 43. There. Which golfer seems to have the highest standard deviation? Okay, remember, high standard deviation is going to come with a large, high standard deviation means you have a high variability. Okay. So if you have high variability, what else would also be high? Your IQR. Okay, so player D has the highest IQR. So I would say player D has a high IQR. Therefore, a high standard deviation. Okay, so maybe you could argue player A with the high amount of skew that could affect the standard deviation as well. But just in general, when there's more variability, these are two measures of variability. But those are some options there. Okay. Player A's box plot. So we're focusing only on player A right here. Okay, so let's look at player A's box plot. The minimum is 42. Quartile 1 is 55. Median is 57. 61. 66 for the maximum. Okay, the question asks, does player A have any outliers? Now, looking at it, you think, hey, it is skewed, right? So we're thinking, hey, maybe there are some outliers here. There's a possibility, but just looking like an outlier and actually being an outlier, that's what we're actually going to do here. So we need player A's IQR. We already determined player A's IQR earlier. The IQR was 6. Look back at your notes if you're wondering how we got that. All right, we need to do 6 times 1.5. Put it in parentheses so that doesn't look like it's just another decimal. 6 times 1.5 is 9. So according to my outlier formula, you'll have this formula on your test. Okay. If you are a low outlier, then Q1 minus that number that we just did will be below that. So let's see what's going on with player A. So if we do 55 minus 9, get 46. Okay, so does player A have any outliers? Well, to be an outlier, a low outlier needs to be below this number right here. Do we have any numbers that are going to be below 46 for player A? Well, we know the minimum is below that, so we know there's at least one. So does player A have any outliers? Well, we know there is at least one low outlier. That is the minimum, which is 42. Okay, let's switch colors for the high outlier just so we can determine it. All right, so to find a high outlier, let's do the same thing, but we're adding that number at the end here. So we're going to do 61 plus 9. 61 plus 9 is 70. So to be a high outlier, we need to be above 70. If our maximum is 66, that means nothing is above 70 on this score. Though you can see the number 70 on this chart, but our box plot ends at 66. So there is at least one low outlier, but there will be no high outliers. Okay, we're moving along. All right, let's do the same thing for player C. We'll stick with the black ink for now. Our minimum was 43. Tile 1 is 55. the 6 for the median, the 8, maximum of 67. All right, so again, we're doing the same thing. We need to take the IQR. We already calculated the IQR for player C in our previous problem. If you want to see how to do that, flip back to those problems where we calculated IQR. We need to take that IQR, multiply it by 1.5, which gives us 4.5. All right, let's find a low outlier. 55 minus 4.5, 50.5. Well, our minimum is 43. So do we have any low outliers? Yes. Because 43, our minimum, is below 50.5. So we have a low outlier. Have a low outlier. Last color of the review. I think, yeah, last one. So let's make it blue. Let's end where we started. So we're gonna do the same thing, but with quartile 3, 58. We're going to add 4.5. 58 plus 4.5 is 62.5. So this is not just using your eyes to think, hey, I think there might be an outlier. We're actually going to say, okay, we've calculated that the maximum of 67. Yes, the max of 67 is a high outlier. Because it is above 62.5. Okay, something looks like an outlier doesn't always mean it is. So do the calculation and make sure one way or another. All right, test on Monday. You're going to do great. Watch this video, redo the problems until you know how to do them without help. Good luck, everyone. End recording. There's the button. Bye, everyone.